Hello, I'm Lorraine Jekyls, and welcome to the Free Insights podcast, where we explore the intersection between all things brand, marketing, and insurance. In this first series, we'll be taking a deep dive into the insurance sector's talent crisis. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Free Insights. I'm delighted to be joined today by a guest who is a communications powerhouse, highly experienced in solving complex branding and positioning problems for corporate and entrepreneurial businesses. She is also a qualified executive coach, used to working really closely with leaders and teams to help them drive their careers and organisations forward. As a former head of brand and marketing for Lloyd of London and now CMO of McGill Partners, Karen Bigwood is perfectly placed to share some insights on how we can help the insurance industry deal with the current perception problem that it's facing. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I start with everyone because everyone's journey is different. Everyone gets into insurance one way or another, not necessarily by design. So tell us a little about you and your journey into insurance.
Well, I guess I probably follow the similar path where it wasn't by design, but I'm so glad I'm here.
Yeah.
So I've had lots of experience in a range of sectors, including insurance. Mm-hmm. I started my early marketing communications career working in business support services, Ministry of Defence, construction.
Yeah.
And as you referenced, I've also spent part of my professional career in leadership coaching and consultancy. But for my sins, the majority of my career has been in insurance. So working for insurance companies, working for the Lloyd Corporation, and now working for McGill Partners in a broking firm. So I guess it's given me lots of experience and insight into sort of not only how the industry works, but a lot of the challenges that the industry faces in terms of, digital transformation, innovation, and obviously talent attraction.
So, over the years, what sort of changes have you seen to the approach that the industry has taken from a strategic level or at a company level?
Well, I guess maybe because I've been in the industry a long time, I've seen a lot of changes and a lot of changes for the good. Mm-hmm. I guess, firstly, I've seen a real focus and an emphasis on purpose, and much more the insurance industry and businesses in the industry talking about the sort of social impact they have. When you look in the news and you read stories in the media, everything that is happening behind the headlines is touching our industry in some way, shape or form. And I think as an industry, we've got much better at acknowledging and recognising that. And I guess we've shifted away from just talking about financial protection and insurance as a cost of doing business, and shifted it much more to how insurance companies and those in the industry enable progress, be it climate resilience, be it innovation, be it, digital, be it geopolitics. And I think that's definitely where we need to be. We just need to get the message out to more people and to younger people. And I guess the second change would be around sort of diversity and inclusion, and the emphasis that's been put on that. And there's loads of great work and things that have created, I think, a real catalyst for change in the industry, which makes us a much more appealing and attractive destination. I guess insurance, probably when I started, was seen as a little bit traditional, maybe a little bit inaccessible, and definitely the culture change initiatives that have happened in the market, like, the inclusion at Lloyd's framework, the Dive In Festival, more recently the Inclusive Futures programme, which is attracting more ethnically diverse, colleagues into the market, I think have been a real catalyst for change and a catalyst for good. And I guess that just makes our market more open, more welcoming, and hopefully more attractive.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, those are just some great examples of how we can showcase the diversity of the people that work in the industry. How can we get better at, showcasing the opportunities to pursue your passions or work into different areas?
Well, I guess a lot of that is showcasing, the variety of careers and the diversity that's available. And there's been, some really good efforts in doing that. If you look at the London Market Group and what they've been doing around their sort of London Insurance Life initiative, they've been really great at sort of identifying those stories and bringing those stories to life. And I know they've done a really great insurance careers guide, which showcased the depth and breadth of careers that are available to people. I guess they just need more people to get involved and to participate, and those stories that will help bring that to life, because there's great content. There is, we're content rich. We've just got to create that content in a really engaging and compelling way and get it out there. So, be it talking about cyber risk and how the industry is helping sort of businesses overcome emerging risks in the digital world, or it's talking around things like space exploration and what we're doing around satellites or space sustainability, or even space travel. But, those things are highly attractive and appealing to young professionals. And I guess it doesn't matter what your interest is. There's something for you in the insurance industry.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in art, you could potentially be a fine art and specie underwriter. If you're interested in geography and politics, geopolitics risks, there's so much. And I think, just showcasing that breadth and that depth, and participating in initiatives like, the activities that London Insurance Life are doing, help bring all of this to life.
Thinking about, that showcasing on telling the story better, how can we in the insurance industry use social channels and digital marketing more?
That we've made a good effort at it, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've had a good stab.
Yeah.
And London Insurance Life, the way they're bringing a lot of these stories to life is through their Instagram channel, which is great. But yeah, there's so much more to be done. And I guess this is an area that changes and moves incredibly quickly as well. And you only have to look outside of insurance into spaces like professional services, and you see how they're, taking advantage of things like virtual experiences and gamification and things like that. I saw a great example from EY where they've got some sort of virtual experience called Adventure Awaits, which is helping young people with their employability skills, showcasing careers available to them, but also, obviously promoting them as an organisation. And I just think it's some of those things that we're sort of scratching the surface, and I think we could go a little bit deeper. And I guess the other thing on this is the responsibility of young people in the industry themselves. Yeah. They have their own channels, they have their own stories to tell. And those stories are going to resonate much more than my story, because I'm not really probably going to appeal to that demographic. And I think there's an opportunity and also a responsibility for sort of young professionals in the market to use their channels, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, to showcase what they're doing, to do a day in the life of a claims adjuster or an assistant underwriter and showcase their stories. And that will have a ripple effect, and, it'll be much more relevant and meaningful, and it's going to resonate much more.
Absolutely. And I think they're even starting to have some insurance influencers on TikTok now, which I never thought would happen. Yeah,
love it. Brilliant.
Exactly. I think one of the other things that positions insurance as being, a bit of a boring and traditional industry is that it's been around for so long. And this is certainly something that I know you had one of the challenges you had to deal with at Lloyd's is how do you balance that tradition and heritage with the fact that it's a modern and vibrant and innovative industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it certainly was a balancing act.
Yeah,
I can assure you that. It was a challenge. It's an institution that's 330 plus years old. And, it also needs to be positioned as relevant and groundbreaking today. And the two have to be really happy bedfellows. So it was always a real balancing act. But we used to approach it by focusing on sort of past and present. And the heritage is and the history is so important. It is a real asset. And it's what gives the market credibility. It's what gives the market stability. It gives the market that sense of tradition. And we know from all the research that we used to do, it really resonated with people that work in the market, but also people that do business with the market. So it is incredibly important. But I guess for a young professional, it can sometimes feel a bit distant.
Yeah.
And it can feel a little bit remote and I guess a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
I know when I first
Yes,
started
yes.
at Lloyd's, I sort of felt a sense of sort of awe, and I was slightly overwhelmed about all of this history and tradition and the responsibility of that brand. But we really approached it by sort of, I guess, trying to connect past, present and future and finding themes that connected those. So, for example, innovation. Yeah. Innovation has been part of Lloyd's DNA, you know, since it started today, and it will continue to be in the future. And it was about finding those stories that connected that. So, for example, if it was ensuring the very first commercial aircraft or the first commercial satellite, to more recently, you know, ensuring the transportation of vaccines during the global pandemic, or what the market's doing in terms of, you know, green energy infrastructure and supporting the transition to net zero. So finding those themes that really connected and showcased how, you know, innovation has always been part of the Lloyd's DNA was, you know, was really part of the strategy. I guess the other thing was, you know, the physical environment itself. You know, if you've been into the Lloyd's building, it's you know, it's a slightly unusual place. And there you'd see the past and the present come together. So you've got these very iconic features like the lutein bell and the underwriting room itself, which gives that sort of sense of stability and continuity. But then if you go onto the fourth floor, you've got the Lloyd's Lab, which gives a very different flavour, which some describe as the Silicon Valley of Lloyd's. But, you know, there you've got insurtech entrepreneurs and market experts working together to, you know, come up with some really innovative and fast track solutions. So I guess, you know, always having that blend of past and present worked really well. And, you know, and for anyone that's been in the building, it's got a real buzz. You know, I used to love walking through the underwriting floor. It's got a real hive. It's a real hive. There's a real buzz about it. And I guess that's an advantage because we can bring young people in and young professionals in and show them what the market is and let them experience it for themselves.
That's wonderful. So thinking about, you know, bringing people into the market, do you think industry-wide collaborations have a place to interest young people, or should companies be doing more on their own?
Well, I'm a big fan of collaboration, and, you know, the beauty of our market is and the nature of how we work is we are very used to both competing and collaborating. That's what we do in the way that we share risk. So collaboration is, you know, is very commonplace, and people are very used to that. And, you know, I've seen the power of collaboration and what it can achieve and how much better the outcomes can be. You know, ultimately we are greater than the sum of our individual parts. So I think there is a real role for that. You know, if you look at the Futures Academy that was being run last year, that was 50 firms that came together, 150 students coming into the market and talking to people about, you know, what careers are on offer. Or the most recent Careers Festival that was, I think, part of the Dive In Festival last year, 500 plus students coming in and talking to, you know, not a number of different firms in the market. And I guess we just need to be doing more of that. And the greater the collaboration, I think the greater the outreach.
Definitely. And I think, you know, our report very much focused on changing the perception of the industry and the businesses within it, obviously because we come at it from a brand perspective. But are there any other areas or ways which, you know, companies and businesses can address that talent and perception problem in the way that they behave?
You know, I guess to some degree, and looking outside of insurance again, I think it is an issue of investment. You know, that, you know, when I look at some of the work that I was doing in the professional services sector, you know, the level of investment that's put into this area is quite stark, I think, in comparison to what we might see in the insurance industry. You know, you've got professional services firms recruiting hundreds, if not thousands, of, you know, young professionals and young talent every year. And there's a real focused effort on building that sort of sustainable talent pipeline, getting them in quickly and developing them really quickly as the leaders of tomorrow. And I guess we're just sort of not approaching it with, I guess, the same level of investment commitment and pace that I've seen in other sectors. And I think that is a barrier and therefore potentially the opportunity for us. I mean, of course, some of the largest firms in the market are doing that, but it's some of the smaller businesses in the market who probably don't have the same, infrastructure or capabilities to be able to, sort of recruit at that level of at that scale. And I guess that's where collaboration comes in, isn't it? And that's the opportunity for us.
So thinking about those smaller businesses and startup businesses, I guess they really have the opportunity to rip up the rule book and start again from their employee value proposition. Is there anything that you've experienced or that you're doing at the moment that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, I mean, a great example would be McGill's. Yeah. As a business, we started in 2019 with a blank sheet of paper. And I guess, the approach has been really quite innovative in terms of the approach to the overall sort of employee experience and the approach to well-being. I mean, at McGill's, we've got a contract of trust. That puts trust very much at the heart of the relationship. We're trusted and empowered to do the right things for our clients, for our colleagues, but more importantly for ourselves. And we're sort of seen and treated and respected both as professionals and as individuals. So that means that the contract of trust has market leading policies around our approach to leave. So we have unlimited holiday. We have a really flexible approach to hours. We work the hours that we need to do to get the job done. We have sort of market leading policies around leave and absence for sort of maternity leave, adoption, sabbatical, grandparent leave, carers leave, and a big focus on well-being, quarterly well-being allowance. And because we're an employee-owned business, everyone feels a sense of everyone's got a stake in the business. And that breeds a sort of culture of loyalty. It builds a culture of performance. And a culture of sort of advocacy where we're respected for who we are and what we bring to the business, and that's very appealing from a culture perspective to people like me who've experienced quite a few different cultures in my career, but also I guess for sort of younger professionals who are looking to work for organisations where, they feel their values align.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people talk a lot nowadays about work-life harmony. And I think what you've just described is exactly that. It's doing the hours you need to do to get the job done. Exactly. and enjoying it and being respected. Certainly being a purpose-driven organisation with that trust is fantastic. So just if there was one thing that you would say that insurance leaders should be doing right now to change the perception of their business or the industry as a whole, what would it be?
I guess my overarching message would be focus outwards rather than look inwards. I see and hear so many leadership conversations about market dynamics, rate, hard market, soft market, the market cycle, and that's just not going to resonate with the young people we're trying to attract into the industry. So I guess I would say, focus on the storytelling, tell the story of your organisation, your people, your culture, and your purpose. And I think, ultimately, stop looking inwards, start looking outwards. It's about people at the end of the day, your people, the people you serve, and ultimately the people you want to attract.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That's really lovely to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.